My fiancée took me to therapy 2 weeks before our wedding, then tried to ambush me into an open marriage. Now she's begging for a second chance. We were about to marry 2 weeks ago. She invited me to go to therapy with her. She was already seeing a therapist on her own and wanted me to accompany her and have a conversation before the wedding where we could be entirely honest with each other. That sounded odd to me. I assumed we were already entirely honest with one another. After all, we were getting married in 2 weeks, right? She was also quite protective of her therapy sessions and did not discuss them openly. I'd never met her therapist, so being welcomed there felt out of place. The day arrived and I went there, but out of self-preservation I kept my phone open and captured any sounds. My fiancée was already present. I had to wait 20 minutes before being permitted in. The therapist welcomed me and shook my hand. We had a small chat. She told me I was not at all like my fiancé described me. I assumed she was attempting to compliment me. Then she turned to my fiancé and said, "This may be harder than we thought." That completely freaked me out. But I am a calm and composed person and I do not react. Instead, I maintain the dumb smile that we all have in awkward situations. So, the therapist starts talking and gives a brief speech that I don't want to repeat. My fiancée holds my hand as the therapist begins to tell me that we live in a modern society and that she wants us to have a non-traditional marriage going forward. I smile. I'm not sure what that means. In my view, I believed she wanted to discuss how she would not be a slave to her husband, how she would not surrender her job life and so on. Modern womanhood, girl power, and all that. No. She was actually discussing how, once we are married, she wants to be free to sleep with other guys, which is another non-traditional sort of marriage. I forgot it is 2018. But she adores me and would be uncomfortable with me having the same privileges because she would be upset if I found other women appealing and one of them stole me away from her. So I let them finish speaking. They were very articulate, and their confidence in speaking grew as a result of my silence. And while I wasn't saying anything, this was clearly something they had practiced. I then questioned the therapist if she was licensed. Her reaction indicated that she did not anticipate this to be the first thing out of my mouth. She answered yes. So, I ordered her to explain to my fiancé why we are no longer getting married and would not continue to be a pair beginning immediately. I wished them luck and exited the office. Now, I'd like to report the therapist. I'm not sure if I need to report her to the clinic or if there is a body that oversees therapists. I don't think their plot to corner me is professional, and I want her to bear the consequences. That session didn't sit right with me. To be clear, there would have been no positive consequence from the conversation my fiancé and the therapist had with me. Even if she had wanted an open marriage in which I could sleep with other women, the end would have been the same. That's not a marriage. That's a sham. It also occurred to me that she might have cheated on me. Certain things don't seem to make sense now that I have this mental clarity. So, I was an idiot nonetheless. I listened to the recording and still can't believe what was stated. Anyway, I called the wedding off. I'm a very easygoing man. There are no fights with me since I don't want them. There are no disagreements or opponents since my life is based on principles and common sense. That could have given my ex the notion that I would be simple to walk over like a doormat. But she's an idiot for thinking that. After listening to the recording a few times, I am confident the therapist recognized that I am not how my fiancé must have described me in their sessions. Hence this may be harder than we thought. Now that the wedding is over, people are beginning to ask questions I am uncomfortable answering. How do I approach this? See, I'm sure my ex is performing damage control, but I have the recording, and if she deviates too far from the topic, I won't be afraid to tell people what she wanted us to talk about. But my parents and family want answers and I'm not sure what to tell them. I don't want them to think I'm an idiot for letting my ex get to the point where she was so confident that she outright told me she wanted to sleep with other guys. She is also blowing up my phone, my best friend's phone, and my brother's phone. We can work on this. I didn't understand what they were telling me in the therapy session. She will do anything to fix this. It was the therapist's idea. She was against it. And so on. The final shriek of a dying siren. All of her cries go unheard and I own those ears. We were also working on obtaining a loan to purchase a home, but I canceled everything. I effectively severed any ties we had, monetarily or otherwise. Her present appeal is that during treatment, she revealed her worries regarding our sexual history. I had far more partners than she did, and the therapist suggested that we level the field. Regardless of the veracity of this, I will report that therapist once I figure out where to go and what to say. This post is largely a rant, but I'd like to know how you would handle questions from friends and family. My ex is definitely conducting her own damage control, and I don't want to be in a he said/she said situation. I have the recording and was wondering if I should share it with the relevant parties. My ex does not know I have the recording. A little update. I am at work and I just received confirmation that the diary has been returned to my ex. I sent it early in the morning by the courier that our office employs, and she had to sign a confirmation order stating that she received it. As several have suggested, I concluded that reading it would be ineffective because she never accepted responsibility for the incident. Thank you. Update 1. Putting aside the jokes, it's been an intriguing 2 weeks since my initial post. Last Monday, I spoke with a lawyer at work about the problem with the therapist. He looked at me as if I was deceiving him and inquired if it was a hoax. So, I asked if he'd like to hear the recording. "Damn right," was his response. I spoke with him again the next day. At the end, he pointed out a few things on the recording that I missed. The therapist was always stating, "We think, we want, we talked about, and we decided." She never said, "Your ex here asked me to talk with you," or "Your ex wants you to know," or anything similar. It was constantly we, this, and that. He also inquired what my ultimate goal is. Do I want to sue? He didn't think I had a case and I agreed. I never planned to sue but rather to alert the right organizations and let them deal with the therapist. It was decided to write 2 letters. One to the clinic where the therapist works and one to the American Psychological Association. We ensured she was accredited. By Wednesday, several more employees were aware of the situation, including one of the 2 case researchers. She researched the therapist, found internet ratings, and got in touch with 2 of her prior patients. The therapist did not have the best reviews. Persons were furious with her, and we were able to hunt down the 2 persons we spoke with via social media. They were more than willing to assist once we explained the circumstances, and their stories were no better than mine. The letters expanded in size as we included the signed stories of the other 2 people, as well as my personal explanation of how my ex transformed after starting treatment sessions and a thorough account of my meeting with the therapist. Last Friday, I met with her parents. Her parents visited my parents' place and we talked. My ex was also present, and additional information was revealed, which was included in the report on the therapist. This week we distributed the reports. The clinic reacted. They called our office on Thursday morning, most likely to see if it was a prank or a serious problem. We spoke with their lawyer, or one of their lawyers, over the phone, and when we confirmed it was authentic, someone else was heard in the background on their end saying, "Well, crap." They stated they'd take this very seriously. One of the guys at work concluded that they had certainly had other complaints before, but this was the first time it had been so thoroughly documented. Their letter also stated that we are reporting this to APA, which may have turned on the heat as well, explaining their speedy response. I'm not sure what will happen, but I consider my problem resolved. However, after speaking with the other 2 people who were treated by this therapist, I strongly hope she is examined, because she sounds nuts and has an agenda. She wrecked their relationships as well. To clarify, one of the individuals was a woman. Then there's my ex and her parents. Friday last week, my parents contacted me and asked me to pay them a visit after work. When I arrived, I was surprised. My ex's parents were also present. My initial response upon seeing their cars in my parents' driveway was to leave. This meeting was meant to be on my terms, but she tried to take control of it. That was not going to happen, let me assure you. My ex waited for me outside. She looked pretty good. If there was ever a girl you wanted your parents to meet, she was the embodiment of it. She informed me that they were coming to speak with me and see if we could resolve this. They weren't her parents. She either never told them what occurred or offered them a version of a story they didn't believe. She carried a diary with her. She told me she began writing in it before starting treatment and continued until Friday morning, that I should read it and it would clear up all of this confusion. I informed her it wasn't a book club. I wanted to walk inside and start the circus, but she asked if I had 10 minutes. She wanted to talk to me for 10 minutes before I met with her parents, and she kept bringing me her journal and crying. Then my sister showed up. Then my ex's sister showed up. They were already present and came out to check on us. So I took her notebook, walked inside, said hello, and left my ex in the back of the garden to claim as much of my parents' garden as possible. They have a spacious garden with plenty of trees and benches. She resigned from her work. The stress was too much for her and she broke down. It increased and never improved. She is no longer seeing her therapist. She began visiting the therapist for work-related issues, but it quickly changed into issues concerning our relationship, and it remained focused on the relationship because that was all the therapist was interested in. She never told her folks why she was my ex. She is currently seeing another therapist. I just listened. She shifted the conversation from her to us. I was told I would be in control. I would handle the finances. I would gain access to all of her devices. I'd be able to track where she goes. Any property we possess would be in my name. She would do everything I desire to trust her again based on what she has said in her communications over the last few weeks. She listed more than the items I mentioned. I'm not sure how she believes it would be a healthy lifestyle for either of us. I asked if she had cheated. She told me that she had the opportunity to cheat, but she never did. I believed her, but it made me angry. What does she mean when she says she had the opportunity? If you are in a committed relationship, you would not put yourself in a position to have this opportunity. You do not desire this opportunity. It's like saying, I had the opportunity to kill someone today. But why? What were you doing when you had such an opportunity? Why call it an opportunity? It sounds like something positive. That pretty much ended our 10-minute conversation. And I told her we should go talk to our parents. So we did. I requested our sisters to leave us alone since what we were about to discuss was not their concern. My sister huffed and puffed, but a stone house can withstand hurricanes and she was not one. So I told about what happened, how the therapy session went, and my determination. I never said that I had a recording since I didn't have to. My ex corroborated everything I had said, which astonished me. Her father had teary eyes, which shattered my heart. Her mother asked her if this is how she believes they raised her and requested an explanation. My ex practically told them the same story: work-related stress, despair, breakdown, treatment, and the therapist's desire to discuss just our relationship. The therapist informed her that our connection was the source of all her stress, that the therapist persuaded her I desired an open relationship, that she may lose me if she does not share her sexual experience with me. How my reaction jolted her out of her lethargy. She resigned her work and is seeking something less stressful. She will try anything to get me back. Started weeping. My ex referenced the diary again, saying that if I read it, it would explain everything, and that while she disagreed with the therapist's opinions, she went along with them since the therapist was a person of authority and expertise. Our parents frowned at me and I told them that I don't read someone's private journal unless they're a dead poet. Big mistake. My objective was to convey that if someone is a writer or a leader, their private notebooks typically become literature and are published after their death. Also, I was hoping they'd get the idea that I don't want to read her journal, because it would be pointless. What was done was finished. Everyone stared at me as if I wished death on my ex. You could smell the hatred in the air. So I said, fine, and vowed to read her journal. You win some, lose some, and then use the incorrect phrases, resulting in even more losses. My ex is seeing a new therapist. She showed her parents the confirmation emails for her appointments. He's an older man with a white beard like Freud. I looked for him online. He is married, attends conferences, and has written several books. They're on Amazon. Seems like a solid character. Can you kids figure this out? This was the second thing that made me angry that day, as if this is child's play and we should simply listen to the adults. We are not old enough to govern our own emotions, and we should certainly not define what constitutes a betrayal that cannot be recovered from. We are just kids and we should just work it out. So I won't back down from the Dead Poets Society remark earlier, and that's how the day ended. We've known each other for 9 years and been a couple for 5. Even if there are real causes for her behavior, how can you return to normalcy? This was not even a reset. My perspective on my ex has profoundly shifted. She became a stranger. Yes, I know a lot about her. I still find her attractive. There's no disputing how great she looked last Friday, but it was also calculated. And I'm not going to lie to myself here. Hair done the way I like it, clothing I got for her, shoes I prefer, a trace of the perfume I gave her, etc. The journal is on my nightstand. I have not read it and I doubt I ever will. I looked through it to see if it was actually a year old, and it is. The ink is clearly older on the initial pages as evidenced by the way the page is folded, and it progresses through the pages. The pen she used was attached to the journal, which I tested. The ink appears to be the same, and the ink level in the pen corresponds to how much I believe the pen has been used to write the journal during the last year. This is not a hoax. Everything about it reflects a year of wear and tear. I don't see how this will make for good reading, me, a mental game-playing instrument. Well, not really. I don't think a year ago when she started writing it, she intended to use it as manipulation. If what she told me is correct, her new therapist requested she share the journal with me. As for how I deal with folks who are overly curious about why the wedding is canceled, we had a significant disagreement that we couldn't resolve, more or less. However, if her sister discovers why, which is highly possible given her sister's strong relationship with their mother, everyone will learn the true reason. Our parents want us to meet again next week. They urged me to read the journal and maybe that helps. Maybe we can work on it and start again fresh since we have so much history. She will receive treatment. She'll get better. She is still the woman I fell in love with, but she is not doing well right now. They can see I still adore her, else I would not be so theatrical, with their words not mine. I don't suppose I'll be meeting them next Friday, but damn, she looked amazing. I'd like to thank the community for their support and assistance. It was enough to help me design a plan of action for the therapist. Thank you to everyone who shared resources and information on what to do. What do I do with her journal? Return it, keep it, and read it 90 years from now? Update 2. Let us begin. The therapist no longer works at the clinic. The major rationale behind the move most probably has something to do with the clinic being sued. Someone else, absolutely unrelated to my circumstance, is suing the clinic. I don't have any extra information on the subject. The therapist attempted to reach Mel but was unable. I assume she learned about my report on her and wanted further information, but who knows? Mel did not interact with her. She was blocked and her questions remained unanswered. There's a voice in the back of my head whispering that putting together that report might not have been the best idea. I believe it increases the possibility that the persons behind the suit will contact me for assistance and shower me with unwelcome attention. Despite this, I can't keep a satisfied grin off my face knowing the therapist is in trouble. To those who have expressed skepticism, I have emotions. If this is not proof enough, I don't know what will please you. I pray to God that you comprehend sarcasm. However, Muriel complicates matters significantly. I added a brief update to my previous post concerning her journal. I decided to return it and I was quite clinical in my approach. On Monday morning, the courier we use at work handed the journal to her. I did include a letter explaining why I had not read it. Everything came down to her refusal to accept responsibility for the situation. I felt that by giving me the book, she wiped her hands of the situation, leaving the weight of finding solutions on my shoulders. In exchange, I cleaned my hands of the situation. To be honest, I felt a pang of sadness the moment they told me the journal had been returned. Perhaps I should have read it. Sophie arrived at my business later in the day. She did not cause a scene like that. She merely waited in the lobby patiently. Her goal was to wait for me to finish my day and then talk to me. Naturally, I discovered she was present pretty quickly. My options were to send her away or talk to her. So we spoke. Several architects designed the demise of our partnership. Number 1, stress. I was aware of this but never realized how serious it was. In retrospect, when she began looking for a therapist to help with her work stress, I should have been more aware of the situation. But she always said everything was all right. So why wouldn't I believe her? Whether she was seeing a therapist or not, she had a breakdown at work that she kept hidden from me and her family. Number 2, I could have been a father. She miscarried. She found out she was pregnant a few weeks ago and wanted to make it extra special when she told me. However, a few days later she began bleeding and that was it. She never told me about it because she was worried I would think she was unworthy. She understands how badly I want to be a father, and she reasoned that this would give me the impression she is unable to bear children. This is a completely terrible notion. Number 3, buddies. I made it clear in the comments that we had friends in open relationships, and she has one such pal. She called Sophie about a year ago and invited her to lunch. She quickly began venting her feelings over her failing marriage upon Sophie. Her husband and I have this in common. We have had considerably more partners than significant others. In my instance there were 26 past partners. In the case of this friend's husband, the figure was a staggering 70. Well, as soon as they married, he demanded an open relationship from his wife, and she has been unhappy ever since. Sophie, it appeared, would face the same fate if she did not take precautions to protect me. This acquaintance told me I was exhibiting the same symptoms as her spouse before they married. Number 4, the people we love are not who we think they are. Our fathers work in academia and have known each other for 30 to 35 years. They routinely attend work-related gatherings and parties, usually accompanied by their wives. Sophie and I met at such an event. I went with my father because I wanted to meet a professor who could have helped me in my profession. Muriel substituted her mother because they had a scheduling difficulty and her mother could not attend, or so she was told. It turns out that her parents were going through a difficult time as a result of her father's adultery. Em just found out about this recently when she discussed the concerns raised by her friend number 3 with her mother. This was an evident shock because her parents were the epitome of a perfect pair, a role model to emulate. They definitely patched things up and maintained the idea of a beautiful marriage throughout. 4 apocalyptic horsemen. When you combine these with a therapist with questionable objectives, you have the makings of a breakup. The therapist was really excited to organize my open relationship. She validated what the friend stated. Men like me will never be satisfied with one lady. I'll eventually look for more. There is only one way to fix my cheating tendencies. Sophie must sleep with other guys. At least until we are even. I will, of course, oppose it, but that is great. If I love Mel, I'll understand. This was a multi-layered concept. It would fix my unfaithful behavior, validate my love for her, and deepen our relationship as a result. This approach would have obviously failed, and I suppose this is exactly what the therapist was aiming for. Without a doubt, our relationship would have ended. What the therapist did not expect was how quickly I reacted. At least this is my current hypothesis. The rest of the week we met on a daily basis and she answered all of my questions. One thing was clear, while I was ready to end things, she was not. She was ready to battle for her life if it meant saving our relationship. At the end of the week, I had to depart for another city for work-related reasons and I was gone for 1 month. The trip was supposed to last 2 weeks, but it had to be extended for an additional 2 weeks. More billable hours. Before leaving, I gave Sophie a copy of the therapy session tape. She knew I had it. It was one of the first topics I spoke with her about when she arrived at my workplace on Monday. I believe listening to the recording rocked her to the core. What she remembered about the treatment session differed significantly from what was recorded. I believe she finally understood where all of my acts and conduct towards her originated from. People at home were aware of my work trip, and I was left on my own for the next 3 weeks. It was amazing that there was so little interruption. Several people in the comments volunteered to drink a beer with me if I ever visited their city. I approached someone the first time I met another Redditor. Surprisingly, not a weirdo, haha. He and his wife were nice folks. Sophie paid a visit during the 4th week. We had been in contact for the previous 3 weeks, exchanging thoughts on a variety of topics that were always about us. One significant issue needed to be resolved. After our wedding, we were going to go to France for 2 weeks as a honeymoon excursion. We couldn't do it right away after the wedding, so it was scheduled 3 months later, and was approaching. We had non-refundable plane tickets. Why can firms do this? We had a hotel reservation. What we didn't have was ourselves. That 4th week, we chatted more and decided to go to France as friends. I can already imagine your eyes rolling as you read the final words. France was great. You visit a country like that and realize the US seems medieval in contrast. When you visit a museum, you can quickly recognize the Americans. How to behave in foreign countries should be a required instruction in our schools. We returned from France as a couple. This has nothing to do with the allure of Paris. There will, however, be a process. We are not back to our former selves. There is still some rebuilding to do. We agreed on several things in no particular order. She is seeking a new job with less stress involved. Our friends in open marriages are now considered a toxic influence, and we will no longer socialize with them. Sophie is a name we both enjoy and it will be used for our first daughter. Thank you, France. Never hide anything such as a miscarriage from your partner. This has enraged me to no end. We'll get a dog and a kitten. She will continue to visit her current therapist for a time. When we do get married, it will be a smaller ceremony with just us and our immediate family. We'll probably head to Italy next. I guess this isn't the exciting news everyone was looking for. Many people have asked for an update, and if you're seeking fury, hatred, or revenge, I'm sure there's a version of this that allows for all of that and more. But, as I mentioned at the start, I didn't despise Sophie at the time. My actions were motivated only by the desire to protect myself. Her actions indicated that she desired something other than what I assumed we both agreed on. There is nothing to be concerned about in terms of her mental state. After the vapors of her therapist's effects subsided, she returned to her former self, more or less. It is impossible not to be affected by these occurrences. Yet she is in a good place. You will recall that she granted me power over her finances, the ability to follow her location at all times, and full access to all of her devices. Aside from my lack of interest in such a lifestyle, they were only an attempt to continue the topic. We all agree that we should be transparent about our gadgets, and for the record, we have always been open. So nothing will change here. Anyway, in terms of finances, we will continue to do what we have always done. Share them.